Hello, and welcome back to Brand Chops, the podcast where we help small businesses and brand curious entrepreneurs make smarter decisions about their branding. There's no fluff, there's no buzzwords, just the straight deal. I'm your host, Zack Lemear, and today we're talking about something deceptively simple but wildly stressful. What the heck do you name your business? If you've ever been stuck staring at a blank page, or worse, pitching your name to someone and watching their face go blank, I got you. In this episode, I'm breaking down how to name your business using a process that's clear, creative, and most importantly, something you can do yourself. No branding degree required. And I'm modeling a lot of this after one of my favorite books on the topic, Hello, My Name is Awesome by Alexandra Watkins. Highly recommend you go on and find it. It's a short read, packed with actionable tips and systems that we'll cover a little bit in this podcast. So first, why your name matters. Let's start here. Your name is your first handshake. It's what people remember, say out loud. It's what they Google. It's what they wear on t-shirts or write on checks. So yeah, it definitely matters. But, and this is key, your name doesn't have to explain everything. In fact, the best names don't try to. They evoke something. They create curiosity. They stick. A name doesn't build your brand alone, but it does set the tone for how people feel about your brand before they ever even experience it. And we talk about this a lot on this show. That your name and your logo is really for being easy to remember, recognize, and share. That's the first and your last job of your name and your logo, because those things are not your brand. Your brand really is the promises that you keep. It's the experience that you provide over and over and over. A lot of businesses out there have technically beautiful logos, but terrible brands because they're not keeping their promises. They're not solving problems consistently. And so there's also a lot of businesses out there that have terrible logos, terrible names. Doesn't make any sense, but they do a great job solving a problem consistently. And so you go back time and time again. I'm sure everyone listening here has got an example of that in their life. So you've got to make sure that you understand what promise you're making, understand what promise you're keeping, and understand what problem you're solving. And then you want to create something in a name and a brand that makes that fairly clear, alludes to it, but also makes it easy to remember, recognize, and share. So again, a name doesn't build your brand alone, but it does set the tone for how people feel about your brand before they've ever experienced it. Common naming mistakes. Here are the top mistakes that people make when naming their business. They're being too literal or generic. Names like Advanced Tech Solutions or Best Ever Marketing don't mean much, and they could apply to anyone. You have to be something that does stick out. It can't be too generic and it can't be too literal. Otherwise, it just becomes fluff and noise and no one remembers it, recognizes it, or shares it. The next, getting stuck on keywords. Stuffing your service or city name for SEO might help you rank short term, but honestly, not necessarily long term. It's boring and forgettable, and it'll hurt you more than it'll help you. The next piece is letting your domain name availability kill a good name. Watkins hammers this in her book. Don't throw out a great name just because the .com is taken. You can use modifiers like get, try, or hello. If you use an example like, say your business name was Gobbles, and you can't get gobbles.com. You can get trygobbles.com or getgobbles.com or hellogobbles.com or gobbleshq.com or something to that effect, and you can still have a direct tie to your brand without it being too different. Don't try too hard to be clever. Clarity over cleverness every time. If people have to ask what your name is or what it means, or you need to explain the joke, it's not working. Don't overthink it to death. Analysis paralysis is real, and we can talk more about how to avoid that later with our systems and our tests against the names. So how do you name your business the right way? Let's walk through a simple, smart naming process that anyone can follow, even if you've never done branding before. Super simple. Step 1, start with strategy. Before you brainstorm, ask yourself things like, what does your business stand for? And you've really got to be clear about this. It can't just be generic. A lot of people stay on table stakes. And what we mean by that is, for example, the minimum a restaurant has to be to become a restaurant, not even a brand name yet. Just the minimum to enter the market is you've got to have food that's tasty, service that's nice, a facility that's clean, bathrooms that are clean. None of that belongs on the sign. You don't ever want to be like, coming soon restaurant, now with less hairs in your potatoes. I don't want to hear that because that's not special. That should just be status quo. So make sure you're not just saying trust, integrity. We do the best job the first time. If you're not doing it right the first time, then what are we talking about? If I can't trust you, then why are we having a conversation? None of that belongs on the thing. That it doesn't make you stand out at all. Everybody should be doing it right the first time. Everybody should be trustworthy. Everybody should have those table stakes. So make sure when you think about what does your business stand for, what is something that you won't compromise for anything? Is it quality? Is it deliverability? Is it response time? Is it your culture? Think about those things. What will you not compromise for any reason? And that's a good start for what does your business stand for. Try to avoid things like table stakes, things that everybody should do. And think about this if the tables were flipped. If you had a brand that you trusted or a brand new brand coming out and they want to earn your trust, and they say, oh, here's a new burger joint now with no flies in the patties. Like what? That should just be obvious and unstated. That does not belong on the business card. So the next one is, what do you want people to feel when they hear your name? What is that emotion that you want them to evoke? Is it trust? Is it reliability? Is it fun? Is it luxury? Depending on if you're a product, a service, a combination of those things, whoever your target is, there's a feeling that you should have. Think about this again as yourself when you're interacting with brands that you love. Think about the fact that you just said that. I love this brand. I hate this brand. Emotions are highly tied to branding because of the experience. Now, if you're delivering a consistent experience and everything is working, great. That's the promise you keep. And that's really all your brand is a promises you keep. It works a lot like a nickname. You can't pick your nickname. But how do nicknames get chosen? Well, if you are the smartest kid in school, that becomes your brand. If you're the most athletic, that becomes your brand. If you come to school smelling bad every day, then you become the smelly kid. It's consistency over talk. So you could say all you want on your sign. We're the best. We have the best food. Now we have, real white meat chicken and no flies in the patties. Doesn't matter if it's not real and it's not consistent. Understand who you're speaking to. You've got to lock in to your ideal client profile and really understand what matters to them and what's driving them. We have a lot of episodes that you can go back to that talk about your ideal client profile, how to pair them with a psychological archetype, which it sounds a lot more complicated than it is, but there's 12 of them. And I'm sure you've probably heard of them: the warrior, the lover, the innocent, the explorer, the rebel, the creative, all these different people. They have a specific way they want to be talked to. There's a tone of voice. There's things that they love and they hate. So for example, a creator does not like things that are repeated or familiar. They like things that are new and different and crazy and weird. And so they'll reject the status quo. And so you've got to know who they're talking to. And you can do easily, just listening to our podcast, you can figure out exactly how to pair your ideal client with a archetype and really get to understand what drives them, what makes them scared, what do they love, what do they hate, what other brands do they align with. And you can really start to get an idea of how you're supposed to speak to your ideal client in a way that will start to drive everything else. Don't forget to jot down your core values. Now, if you have just some core values or you don't have any, be careful. And again, there's lots of great episodes of Brand Chops that talk about your core values and how to create them. But don't just go trust and integrity. They have to be unflappable statements that are so strong you can hire and fire against them. They have to be 10 commandments strong. So trust and integrity, table stakes. If you're not trustworthy, then why are we even talking? Why would I have a conversation with somebody I can't trust, especially in a business that I'm going to hand over money and I expect a problem to be solved and I can't trust you? Why would I even talk to you? That doesn't belong on your core values. They have to be something that you can say, you know what? I'm looking for this type of person to work for me. I'm looking for this type of person to lead. I'm looking for this type of person to work with as far as a customer. And these people all have similar core values. What are those core values? What will I not compromise for anything? And if there's some integrity and trust in there, pair it with a statement. Again, I highly recommend you go back, and I'll put the links in the comments in our social media posts so you can go to those other episodes. But they're really easy to follow and will help you figure out exactly how to tap into these core values. But they have to be unflappable statements that really help you drive decisions moving forward. They should not be changing just like your personal core values. There's certain things that you won't compromise for anything. There's certain things you will not stop or break. It doesn't matter what's on the line, and that has to be for your business. There can be some overlap with your personal core values, but traditionally your brand's core values stand alone. So really, truly lock those in. The next thing is, what is your unique offering? Why you? What makes you different? Everybody sells IT services. Everybody sells hosting accounts. Everybody sells 24/7 monitoring, and I'll help you fix your printer. But why should I choose you? And this is, again, look into who you're targeting. So for example, if you're targeting a cultural difference, so if you're targeting a place that speaks Spanish or a Spanish speaking area, not even outside of America, then you want to make sure that you say maybe how you stand out is you have support people that are bilingual. So now they won't have as much trouble communicating with their people when their internet is down. That's why you're different. That's why they choose you. The rest of it is table stakes. The rest of it is just whatever makes you a restaurant, whatever makes you generic. To be a McDonald's, you have to have a drive-through that's super fast and Happy Meals. That's what makes you different. To be a Chipotle, you have to have a pretty fast but fresh Mexican experience that allows you to get more for your money. All these different things, right? To be a luxury experience, you have to have very tiny portions that are very prestigious and cost a lot of money. A lot of different things, right? Things maybe that have rare ingredients or farm to table, or why you. So really think about what makes you different and do a little research with your competitors. What's making them the same? And what are and you know what's here's a perfect tip for you. Snoop on your competitors. Look at their social media comments. What are people loving and what are people hating? That's a great way for you to position your business against them. If you keep hearing a bunch of complaints about service, deliverability, whatever it might be, food, flavor, whatever the different businesses that you're doing, there's tons of free information out there just waiting for you to look. And then you'll be like, oh, wow, our competitors are really dropping the ball on this. This is where we can stand out. And this is where we can pull a bunch of market share because everybody's just waiting to leave so that you can solve a problem the way that they need it to be solved. The next thing is, how do you want your tone and your voice to sound? Is it going to be serious? Is it going to be fun, rebellious, refined? Think about Liquid Death. It's a water company that broke into a very flooded market, pun intended. And honestly, they did it for a bunch of different reasons, but they're very rebellious. They're very fun. They're very irreverent with their marketing. And they do it all the time. And they stand out. They're in a can. They're not in a bottle. They do everything different. Liquid Death, murder your thirst. They're not really even solving a problem per se. They're not so much solving a problem or a need. They're solving a want. And what they found was that there was a lot of rock stars that were out there with Monster energy drinks and all these things that didn't really make them feel good and they didn't want to drink it. So they were dumping them out and filling them with water because they wanted the cool can, but they didn't want the poison inside it. So they said, you know what? We can mimic that can. We know we can't compete on water or ingredients. Everybody can do what we do. That's table stakes, but we can be Liquid Death. We can be the cool can to hold. We can be the thing that murders your thirst and gives you a laugh. And their water's not that special. It's just pure water. I think they have a couple now different flavors and stuff like that, but it's the way that they market it and they know who they're talking to and they've created a market and they broke into a super flooded market just because they know who they're speaking to and they have a consistent tone of voice. So think of this as setting your creative GPS. These are the elements that will help you move forward, give you direction, help you make really easy business decisions. So the next step is knowing the names that you can choose from. So there's a lot of types of names. There's no one right format, but here are some categories to play with. There's a descriptive name that's more straightforward, something like Toys R Us. There's suggestive names. They hints at a benefit. Netflix, movies you can stream on the internet. Amazon, huge marketplace, things of that nature. You can have an invented or an abstract name, made up names basically, Kodak or Google. You can have a playful or punny name, fun and memorable. Walk This Way with WOK. Imagine going to Boston or a big city and you see a fun Chinese restaurant that's called Walk This Way and you're like, oh, I got to go in there. And even if you don't, it's easy to recognize, remember, and share. Oh, you wouldn't believe the name of these businesses that I just saw. And you know what? I say this all the time. Marketing isn't about talking about yourself. It's really more about getting others to talk about you. And that's how that works. The next one is founder-based, named after you, like Ford or Chanel. The next one is portmanteau, or a mashup of words. A good example of this is Groupon. Group plus coupon, two different names, making a new meaning that is directly tied to what they do and how they're different. Groupon. Great. And these are traditionally easier to secure because they're made up names. Foreign or exotic names that adds a little flavor or curiosity, like Haagen-Dazs. Now that can sometimes be trouble to spell, but depending on what it is, like if it's sourced in Germany or if it has something specific to that region, definitely something you should test out. Geographic, locational pride, like Arizona iced tea. Very good ideas to start your brainstorming, which brings us to step 3, which is the brainstorm. This part should feel really messy, and that's good because you want to get everything down that you can think of. No wrong answers. You can clean them up later. You can filter through them later with the other techniques that I'll talk to you about. So you want to use tools like mind mapping. Start with a core word like freedom or design or whatever is related to your business or your core offering, what makes you different, who you're talking to, all these things you had to do first, and then build branches off of them. So just coming up with any ideas that you can think of, no wrong answers. Word associations is good too. Write down what comes to mind, fast and loose, no wrong answers. You might find some things in there that you would have had a hard time coming up with, in a brainstorm session, just because you're just doing word associations. And we'll talk more about how you can filter through these and you can work off of these lists in a moment. Scamper technique is another good way. Okay. So say you've got these words and you've got freedom or whatever it is. So you could say, okay, well, what other things can we substitute for freedom? What are a bunch of synonyms or antonyms for freedom? Come up with a bunch of lists. How can you combine these words? How can you adapt it? How can you modify it? A lot of companies like Grammarly, they'll put an ly on the end of a word to modify it. Or how can you put it to another use or eliminate different pieces of it? There's other companies that will take all the vowels out of their words. Flickr had no E and it was just I think it was FLICKR. How can you reverse the word? Use these ideas to try and spark more ideas to get you through. It's called Scamper. Substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, and reverse. Try another thing called role storming. Pretend you're your ideal customer. Pretend you're a competitor or even a child. What names might they suggest? Think about what problem you solve, what market you're in, what your competitors are doing, who you're targeting, and what matters the most to them. And think about how they would feel about your product. Think about what pain they're feeling and what relief, what story is being told here. So much value in role storming. So you really want to aim for at least 50 to 100 names. And yeah, I know that's a lot, but quantity leads to quality. And come up with as many as you can. And again, use that scamper technique to really get that list deep. Substitute names, get antonyms and synonyms. Try to combine things with the portmanteau, meaning a Groupon type thing. How can you modify it by taking out consonants or taking out letters? Eliminate and reverse different things to spark more ideas. You probably have a lot more than 100 and it'll be faster than you think. Step 4, narrow it down. You go to apply a few filters now that you've got a big list. So here's a couple. Is it short? 1 to 2 syllables is ideal. Again, easy to remember, recognize, and share. Is it easy to spell? Is it easy to say out loud? Does it feel like your brand? Trim your list to about 5 to 10 names that feel exciting, unique, and speak to your values. But again, be careful, tread lightly here, that this isn't just your favorite stuff. Because this is not about you. This is about the people that you serve, the problem that you solve, and the brand that kind of lives on its own. The brand is not you. You are not your brand. There might be some overlap in your values. That's true, and that's okay. But it kind of has to be its own entity. So be careful not to just say, I like these the best because they're my favorite. Try again to be like, okay, well, what is my customer really going through right now? What problem is out there in the world that I have a unique solution for? And what's the result for that solution? How are they going to be the hero of this story? Meaning, how can my solution solve their problem so they look awesome or they feel awesome or they accomplish something that they didn't think was possible? Those are the things you need to be thinking more about. I like this name because it's funny to me, or this is something that is unique to me, or I used to do this and so I want to name it that, or this was an old joke that me and my friends used to have and no one really talks about it anymore, but I still think it's funny and we're going to name it that because it's different. Not good enough. You've got to be really taking yourself out of the equation and realizing that this business and this brand, as much as you own it, is not about you. It's about the people that you serve and the problems that you solve. So make sure that you trim your list to 5 to 10 names that feel exciting, unique, and speak to your values, but also apply to those other ideals. So here's a couple of other things that you can do. You run tests against them. So there's one called Smile and one called Scratch. And these come directly from the Hello, My Name is Awesome book, and they're awesome. I really, again, highly recommend you get that book. It's a very short read, and it'll go into more details about all of these pieces and parts that I'm going over now. The SMILE test, it's an acronym, and it's just the traits of a super sticky name. So S stands for suggestive. Does it evoke something about your brand? Is it memorable? Is it easy to remember? Easy to recall? Imagery, does it trigger a mental picture? Lexical, does it use wordplay, rhyme, or rhythm? Sometimes you can do alliteration, like we use gobbles. So get gobbles is alliteration because it's using the same letter in every word. And that actually makes it easier, mnemonic device for us to remember things. And again, you want to be easy to remember, recognize, and share. So use those techniques, rhyme, rhythm, things like that. Emotion, does it make people feel something? So SMILE, suggestive, memorable, imagery, lexical, emotion. If your name passes 3 to 5 of these, keep it. It's a good sign that it's going to be a good name. Now here's your Scratch test. It's what to avoid in a bad name. S stands for spelling challenged. If people can't guess how to spell it, that's not a good sign. Copycat. Sounds like a competitor. You do not want ambiguity in the marketplace. You don't want people to, there's a reason why Pepsi and Coke are very fundamentally different in color schemes, in letters, in everything. There is no question about which product is which. Restrictive. Does it box you into one product or one location? Be careful about that because you want to build something that will scale with you. The last thing you want to do is have to rebrand later on when it's very, very expensive. Is it annoying? Is it hard to say, or is it weirdly stylized, like a bunch of capital letters and lowercase letters? Does it look like a password where you're throwing numbers in for letters and spelling things with a Z when they don't need to have it? Don't go with something hard or weird to say because, again, easy to remember, recognize, and share. Oh yeah, I found this really good place and they had really good food, but I can't remember their name, or they were named something like this, or maybe it was rhyming with that. I don't know. You're going to have to Google it because I don't remember how to spell it. That's not how you want people to share your content. It's not how you want people to share testimony about your business or your service. You want it to be super easy. Is it too tame, bland, boring, or safe? Probably not good. You want it to stand out. Is it cursy, right? Is it accidentally offensive or weird in another language? You got to be careful. There's lots of examples of this. The Chevy Nova is a oldie but goodie. But in certain other cultures, it means no go, and nobody's going to buy a car that doesn't go. There's lots and lots of examples of this, but you've got to be careful. If it doesn't, you don't even have to be targeting people outside of the United States. There's so much diversity in America that you could be just doing subcultures. Some people could be targeting Chinatown or some places more down south where there's more Spanish-speaking people or Spanish communities. You've got to be careful not to accidentally be offensive or weird in another language. Is it hard to pronounce? If people hesitate saying it out loud, that's a problem. If it makes them feel stupid because they can't pronounce it, not great. So if your name triggers more than 1 or 2 of those, you've got to toss the name. This is going to be very helpful when you've got that 50 to 100 names. You qualify them through this. And you know what? Put this into ChatGPT. Now that you've got what you stand for as a company, what makes you different, who you're targeting, all those things that you've figured out already on your own with no AI, you feed that information into AI. And then you say, hey, I want you to put these 50 names that I've come up with through the Scratch test or the Smile test. Tell them what the Smile test is. Tell them what the Scratch test is in AI. And then it'll go through it. And it'll be a much faster way for you to filter through these. And then you can start brainstorming with ChatGPT about things that might work better. Step 6, check your available domain names. But here's the thing. Don't panic if the exact.com is gone. You can try modifiers. So we're going to use gobbles.com. Say you can't get gobbles.com, but you can get getgobbles.com or trygobbles.com or gobbleshq.com or hellogobbles.com. Something that is of small variant, but still very consistent. It doesn't change the value or the meaning of what you're doing, and it's still locked into your name and makes it easy to remember and share. Social handles are the same thing. You really want to try your best for consistency, but a variation is fine. Just try not to make it different for every single platform. You don't want hello gobbles for Facebook and then try gobbles for Instagram and gobbles HQ for TikTok. You want to try and get at least the same. It doesn't even have to be the same for your domain name, but it should be the same on all your social media platforms so that people can go from platform to platform and you're building an audience that can recognize you and remember you because they don't have to think too hard. Trademark. Do a quick search at the USPTO.gov. That's United States Patent and Trademark Office. You don't need to file yet, but you can check for conflicts. It's not a super easy email. It's not a super easy website to use. However, and this is in my experience, I've met and worked with a lot of trademark attorneys, and they're very happy to give you a 30-minute free consultation where they'll give you a quick lookup, maybe see something that you might not see, give you a little bit of information, because ultimately when you do decide to trademark, they're assuming that you're going to pick the people that helped you first. So look it up, tap into your local networking groups, look for a local trademark attorney. They're everywhere. And in my experience, they've been very, very eager to help as just a lead generation tool because it's mutually beneficial. So do a quick search at the USPTO.gov or have a trademark attorney do it for you. Step 7. Here's the thing. Your gut check and your real feedback. Now that you've gotten past the names, they've passed through the filters, you've got a list of things that you like, you've got some domain names you could register, you've possibly got a trademark that you can work through. Now it's time to say your name out loud, kind of introduce yourself as the brand, date it for a while, test it out, give it a test run, write an email with a name and the signature, imagine it on a t-shirt. Does it still feel good? Then get feedback from your ideal customers. Get feedback from people that aren't going to give you yes or no answers, and be very specific with your questions. Not like, what do you think of this? Or does this look good? Does this sound good? Most people will give you a yes or no answer and it's not going to be useful information. Try questions like, how does this make you feel? What do you think I do? Does this evoke trust? What is your thing that you're trying to compete on, right? So if you're trying to compete on speed or whatever, what's the thing you want to stand out for most? Does your logo and name have something to do with that? And is it easy to understand without explanation? Don't overly explain this. Just give them the basic as if they're seeing it for the first time, like a regular customer, and see what their feedback is. And a lot of times, you'll be surprised, but you've got to be specific with your questions or else you're just going to get a bunch of vanity answers. Looks good, sounds good, but that's not really what you want. You want, I feel like I would buy from this company, or this seems like a company that solves this problem. Then when you start getting those kind of feedback, that's when you can really say, okay, this is where I can adjust, because looks good is not good enough information. If you have a team, definitely throw it by your team too, and a few people who give you that honest feedback. But don't pull everybody. You'll just get confused, and so you want to have specific groups, specifically ideal customers, people that will absolutely give you honest, no polite reaction feedback. And again, be specific with your questions. Don't just throw it on Facebook and say, what do you think? Because you're just going to get a bunch of junk answers, and it's going to seem like you're helpful, but yeah, you really want to be specific. Step 8, decide and commit. This is the part where people panic and stall, but don't, because your name will grow meaning over time. It doesn't need to be perfect on day one. And I think I've said this before in many of our podcasts. After a certain amount of time, your name becomes synonymous with the promise that you keep. And that's what I say all the time. Your brand is not your logo. It's not your name. Your name and your logo are there to make your brand easy to remember, recognize, and share. But ideally, what it is it's the promises you keep. What problem are you solving consistently? What promise are you keeping? I will be there on time. I won't make a mess. Whatever your promise is, whatever it is, whatever business you're doing, learn what promise you're keeping. You might not even know what promise you're keeping. And you got to be careful because the promise you're making might not be the same thing as the promise you're keeping. So it works a lot like a nickname. If you show up every day consistently in a certain way, you earn a nickname. You cannot choose your nickname. That is how your brand works. Now, you give it a name, you give it a logo so it's easy to remember, recognize, and share. But the meaning, the experience, the brand will be decided by the people that experience your brand, not you. So you've got to be careful because perception is reality. So if they see that you're making a promise that you'll deliver on time every time and you deliver 50% of the time, then your brand becomes that you're a promise breaker, that you're slow, that you are not reliable. Regardless of what you're saying out loud, doesn't matter. If you show up as the athletic kid, you'll be the kid who's the best at sports. If you show up as the smart kid, you'll be the nerd. If you show up as the smelly kid, you'll be the smelly kid. It's all about how you're consistent. You could say, I smell the best, I'm the smartest. It doesn't matter what you say. It only matters what you do consistently and how people perceive that. So be careful. Again, your name will grow that meaning over time. Google was supposed to be a name for like the largest number there is, meaning it was a huge service and it was a huge database, huge amount of information, huge amount of possibilities. But Google is a much bigger company than just search engines. And that was very much a name that was decided by the engineers that designed the whole first product. And again, it grew meaning over time. Now it became a verb. I'm going to Google this. But Google doesn't mean search engines. It means getting the information I need fast. It means accuracy. It means wisdom, knowledge. There's so many things about it that doesn't mean search engines. And that was built by consistency. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect on day one, but pick the one that feels right, passes all the tests, and makes you excited to build, and make sure that it's in alignment and resonating with the people you serve, surrounded by the problem you solve. Here's some examples that stick. I want to hit you with some names that really got it right. Slack, short, memorable, even a little ironic for a productivity tool. Easy to remember, recognize, and share. MailChimp, quirky and memorable. The chimp gave it an entire personality. And there's so many people that are familiar with MailChimp that probably have never even used an email service and maybe not even used MailChimp. But it's easy to remember, recognize, and share. And when the time comes that they do need it, they'll be top of mind. And that's the power of branding. Notion, abstract but evocative. Feels like a place ideas live. Lululemon, a made-up word, but it's fun to say and it's easy to remember. And obviously it did the job. Spotify, that's those mashup portmanteau words, inventive and completely brandable. You'll notice none of them explain exactly what they do, but you remember them anyway. That's the goal. So let's wrap up and take some action on this. Here's your action plan. You want to define your brand's vibe and values. Pick 2 to 3 name types you want to explore. Brainstorm 50 to 100 names using mind maps and word association. Then shortlist your top 5 to 10, put them through those tests and those filters. Run them through those smile and scratch tests to see if they work. And then check domain names and trademarks. And then get honest feedback. And once you do that, you can pick the one that feels right and aligns with what your goals are for your business, not just what you think is your favorite, and go build something amazing. That's it. That's all there is to it. So remember, the best names aren't perfect. They're purposeful, and they're backed by a brand that delivers every single time. There's tons of companies out there with a pretty logo and a fun name that have a terrible brand because they don't deliver on their promises. And there's tons of businesses out there that have a terrible logo and a silly name or a hard name to remember, but they deliver on their promises, and it doesn't matter what their name is because then that's become synonymous with the problem that they solve and the experience that they provide consistently. So if you can do those things, you're going to have a fantastic name. Thanks for joining me today on Brand Chops. If this episode helped you think differently about naming, send it to someone who's stuck. Or better yet, tell them the best name you've ever heard and why. And subscribe if you haven't yet. I've got no more fluff, straight to the point branding advice coming your way. And until next time, I'm Zack Lemear. Go name something awesome. Brand Chops is brought to you by the fine people at Pivot Creative. Pivot Creative is a full-service branding and marketing agency that partners with businesses to build brands that connect so that every dollar you spend is an investment and not an expense. If you need some branding or marketing guidance, a website, a new brand, or want to learn more about one of the topics we cover on the show, please reach out to us at pivotcreative.com. If you know someone that would benefit from learning more from one of our shows, please share the episode. Visit brand-chops.com. And as always, like and subscribe if you find this content to be helpful. See you next time on Brand Chops, where we chop up brands to see what they're made of.